Just hours before President Donald Trump would officially become former President Trump, he had some business to attend to. More specifically, there was a list of names the media, the public, and of course those hoping to be on said list were eagerly awaiting to be released. Those to be pardoned by President Trump, likely one of his final acts while in office. In total, Trump would pardon a total of 73 people, and we can't name all of them, so we decided to just list off the top 10. Unfortunately, although many were hoping high-profile names such as Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, and of course Joe Exotic would be pardoned, they didn't make the list. Surprisingly, Trump didn't put himself nor his family on the list, but he did include some rappers and former associates. Others are names you likely haven't heard of, but their stories are quite interesting. Smash that like button and let's get into it. Starting us off at number 10, Lil Wayne. Making headlines to finish off 2020, Wheezy F Baby, as they sometimes call him, was facing a federal weapons charge from a situation dating back to December 2019 at a private Miami airport. Reports claim that Miami police tipped off federal authorities that Wayne was flying into the state carrying some Mary Jane as well as a weapon. Given that Lil Wayne had a previous weapons charge which led to him being a convicted felon, he's not allowed to have any weapons. This led to him being charged with possessions of a firearm and ammunition by a convicted felon. He pleaded guilty and was facing up to 10 years until President Trump decided last minute to pardon him. It was a surprise to some, but given Lil Wayne's outright support for Donald Trump prior to this, I think we all saw it coming. On to number 9, Steve Bannon. Trump's former chief strategist, who was also the head of the We Build the Wall fundraiser, was accused of pocketing some of the money raised for said wall. You know, the one that was going to be built between the US and Mexico? That one. They raised $25 million from people for that. Anyways, in August of 2020, Bannon was taken into custody on charges of fraud and money laundering, which of course he pled not guilty to. He's also being held responsible by some for inciting violence at the Capitol. During his War Room podcast, Bannon said, I quote, "All hell will break loose tomorrow. It will be quite extraordinarily different. All I can say is strap in. Tomorrow is game day. So many people said, man, if I was in Revolution, I would be in Washington. Well, this is your time in history." Scary stuff, yet Trump gave him a full pardon. At number 8, Dwayne Phelps, a regular man who simply made a mistake. Already serving 11 years in prison for planning to distribute narcotics, it seems Mr. Phelps truly has redeemed himself, and Donald Trump or someone on his team noticed. As per the official White House document, I quote, "He has served over a decade in prison with clear conduct, has trained as a dental apprentice, participated in Unicor, and is noted as being a reliable inmate capable of being assigned additional responsibilities. Most notably, Mr. Phelps' sentence would unquestionably be lower today under the First Step Act. Here's to wishing the man all the best, and I'm glad he finally got out." On to number 7, Randall Duke Cunningham. The former California congressman was sentenced over 8 years for accepting bribes while in office. As per the White House statement, I quote, "During his time in prison, Mr. Cunningham tutored other inmates to help them achieve their GED. Mr. Cunningham is a combat veteran, an ace fighter pilot, and a member of the Military Order of Purple Hearts. Although combat disabled, he continues to serve his community by volunteering with a local fire department and is active in Bible study." Cunningham was actually released from jail back in 2013 after serving his sentence starting in 2006. That being said, his previous conviction restricted him from certain luxuries, such as owning a gun permit in the state of Arkansas. Funny enough, a law that prohibited convicted criminals of getting a permit was actually helped pass by Cunningham, who voted in favor while he was in office. So, I guess he can get his permit now that his slate is clean, but I find it very funny that he passed a law and then he went to jail and then he couldn't get the gun because of the law that he passed. You know what we call that? It's not even karma. Is that karma? I don't think that's karma. At number 6, Elliot Broidy. To no surprise, Elliot here is one of Trump's top fundraisers, meaning he likely donates hundreds of millions of dollars to Trump's campaign and is involved in other businesses with the guy. Now, I don't know for sure, but that's usually how these things work when you're like a top donor. You're like, you know. Either way, Broidy was also a former Republican National Committee Finance Chair and pleaded guilty in October with plans to violate foreign lobbying laws. He was pretty much trying to work out a deal with politicians in Malaysia to prevent the US government from investigating into a scandal involving the country's former prime minister embezzling money. The guy's off the hook now, so we'll see what he gets up to within the next few years, but I don't know, that's kind of messed up. Halfway now at 5, Rick Renzi. Another former US representative, Republican Rick Renzi of Arizona was granted a full pardon thanks to President Trump. Although he had already served his 3-year prison sentence, of which he was released a year early, Renzi still maintains his innocence. With charges of racketeering, money laundering, and others related to a land swap scheme, Renzi released a statement following his pardon. I quote, "After almost 14 years of fighting for my innocence, it took a real man of action and courage in President Trump to finally relieve me of the horrific deceit of being wrongly convicted by a Department of Justice that engaged in witness tampering, illegal wiretapping, and gross prosecutional misconduct." Reports claim that Renzi threatened to stop a project if mining executives didn't purchase land from a former associate who owned Renzi money. Yikes. Seems pretty illegal to me. I don't know. Bringing us to number 4, Anthony Lewandowski. Anthony here was a former engineer at Google, you know, like the massive company that pretty much runs the world. So he worked there for a few years, decided to quit and start his own company, and then the company would get bought out by Uber, who would bring him on board and then fire him a year later. The issue here is that while at Google, Anthony decided to download a ton of files, including blueprints and design files, to take with him to use while working for himself. These plans were then handed over to Uber, who got into a lawsuit with Google, claiming they stole their design. You guys see what I'm getting at? In 2019, the Department of Justice charged Anthony with a total of 33 charges, one of which Lewandowski would plead guilty to in March of 2020. In August, he'd be sentenced to 18 months in jail while having all of the charges dropped as part of his plea deal. However, during his last day in office, President Trump would wipe this man's slate clean. At number 3, the Blackwater Guard. Now this is actually 4 people, and I was going to put all of them as 4 separate names on this list, but figured that'd be such a ripoff for you guys. Include 4 people guilty of the same thing on a top 10 list? I don't know, I just didn't feel right about it. Either way, the Blackguards are Nicholas Slatton, Paul Slow, Evan Liberty, and Dustin Hurd. These men were actually pardoned back in December of 2020. However, they may be some of the most shocking of all the people pardoned over Trump's 4 years. In 2014, these 4 men were convicted in the wounding and killing of innocent Iraqi civilians dating back to a 2007 ambush. In total, the men killed 14 and wounded 17, with witnesses claiming they attacked unprovoked, using heavy gunfire and grenade launchers. While on assignment for a private military contractor, Blackwater, in Baghdad, the guards for whatever reason decided to open fire, and following their sentencing, were facing between 12 years to life in prison. One of the victims of the crime, Hassan Salman, who was shot during the ambush, told NPR, I quote, "Today we were surprised that the American president issued a decision to pardon these criminals, murderers, and thugs. I'm really shocked. The American judiciary is fair and equitable. I had never imagined that Trump or any other politician would affect American justice." Now on to Bob Zangrillo, CEO of a private investment firm in Miami. Zangrillo was one of many charged in the 2019 college admissions scandal, the one where people paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes to ensure their children would get into the University of Southern California. Bobby was right there with the rest and was actually awaiting trial stemming from charges of bribery and fraud. That being said, unlike some of the others who were charged or convicted, the White House statement made it very clear, I quote, "His daughter did not have others take standardized tests for her, and she is currently earning a 3.9 GPA at the University of Southern California. Mr. Zangrillo is a well-respected business leader and philanthropist." Full pardon for Bob. Now in at number 1, Paul Erickson. This is an interesting one, as Erickson had ties to Maria Butina, who was his girlfriend. I mean, obviously they had ties. Either way, Butina pleaded guilty to being directed by a Russian government official to, I quote, "establish unofficial lines of communication with Americans having power and influence over American politics." Erickson, a conservative political activist with ties to the NRA, wasn't convicted of anything involving that. However, to no surprise, there was a very close and watchful eye on him. Eventually, the Department of Justice hit him with charges of money laundering and wire fraud, which he pled guilty to in November 2019. In July 2020, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison, but as of January 20th, 2021, he no longer had to serve another day. Now, I will say, guys, before we wrap up, there's a lot of talk that Kodak Black got pardoned, but he actually got commuted. The main difference between the two is that if you're pardoned, you have a clean criminal record. It removes any civil disabilities, meaning you can do things such as vote and I guess own a gun. If you get commuted, you still have a record, but it doesn't remove any civil disabilities. It simply means your sentence is going to be reduced partially or totally. It's also important to note those who were pardoned only get cleared federally. The state can still try to charge a lot of those pardoned by Trump, including some on this list. Now, as always, guys, love to hear some thoughts down below. For now, let's do some comment replies from the video. Top 10 crazy celebrity rumors you won't believe. Zanilla Vanilla said, anyone else fixated on Jared's sparkly hat? I was wearing a purple hat. I got a blue wall. I guess when they keyed it out, I didn't even think about that. I'm an idiot. I almost wore a blue hat today too. Didn't even think about that, so I'm glad I didn't. Navon Noun said Amber Heard's poo. I believe is true. The maid wouldn't lie about that. Shake my head. I just find it hard to believe. If she sleeps in that bed too, why would she take a dump on it? Aside from that, the maid could lie because Johnny could pay the maid a lot of money. And I want to make it very clear, I am on Johnny's side, but like, some things I was like, And maybe, I'm not saying Johnny's trying to frame her. Maybe he genuinely thinks that she did it because she's, I don't know, maybe she does stuff like that. But if she slept in the bed too, why would she poo in it? It doesn't make sense. Nova Angel said, yes, Jay-Z and his wife did Illuminati. Did Illuminate? I think he meant to write Illuminati. But unless he meant Jay-Z and his wife did Illuminati. Get it? That's all for this video. I've been your host, Jared Bronstein. We'll see you soon. Bye.